What up, B Squad? It is your boy JB, and I am here today with the review for, I believe I want to do Abbott Elementary, you guys. So this is going to be season number 2. This is going to be episode 11. Read-A-Thon is the title of the episode. Now, before we go ahead and get into the review, you guys, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel and aren't subscribed to the channel yet, then do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know you can do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, turning on your post notifications, and sharing the video, you guys. And with that out of the way, without further ado, let's discuss Abbott Elementary, shall we? All right, you guys, so this episode, we opened up and we're in the teacher's lounge, and Janine and Gregory are there, right? Janine and Gregory are being so awkward with each other. And, you know, Barbara and Ava are noticing the fact that they're being awkward with each other. And Ava's like, oh, they just been awkward with each other because they dance with each other at the club. And Barbara says, the only club that I go to is Bible Club. So Ava said, do they play good music there? Because my favorite club that I go to, they shut it down because they let a horse in. I was like, they let a horse into a club? Why? So Ava is giving out a score sheet, right? And it's for, you know, this thing called the Read-A-Thon. And Melissa comes in because she has the championship belt on her shoulder, right? Because she is the 2-time champ. And Janine is like, you know, my kids are going to win that. And you guys know how Janine is. Janine feels like failure. It builds character. I was like, does it really, Janine? I don't necessarily know about that one, right? Barbara was like, yeah, Janine, unfortunately, I'm not going to go against Melissa because Melissa is known to, you know, motivate anybody to read a book. So Barbara's money is on Melissa. Honestly, my money is on Melissa too. Let's be real. We're talking about Janine here. Love Janine to death, but I'm not going to give it to you, Janine. Sorry, baby. Love you, Janine. I really do, but I gotta give it to my girl, Melissa Shamenti, Miss Shamenti. So let's pause here and move forward. So we see Jacob. So Jacob is in the hallway. Oh, speaking of which, you guys, did you guys watch Wheel of Fortune? So before the episode, they were on Wheel of Fortune. So it was Janelle James, Chris, who plays Jacob, and Cheryl Lee Ralph, who plays Barbara. So they were playing for it, you know, their charities, and it was hilarious. It was this one puzzle that Janelle. So Cheryl Lee Ralph had really gotten almost all the letters on the board, right, on the puzzle, and she lost a turn, and so then it went to it went to Janelle James. And so Janelle put some more letters on her just to get some money, right? And it was one letter left, and she had one letter, and she was like, "How do you spell that?" And then she's like, "Oh, it's a K." I can't remember what the puzzle was, but it was hilarious. It was funny. Them being on there was a great time, right? So if you guys did not watch Wheel of Fortune, I'm pretty positive, Celebrity Wheel of Fortune that is, I'm pretty positive it's on Hulu. Go check it out. It was a whole hour worth of them. They won a lot of money for their charities. Chris was playing for, you know, something for the LGBTQ. Janelle was playing for the Innocence Project. And Cheryl Lee Ralph was playing for something that benefits teachers. So go check it out if you guys didn't watch it. But back to the show. So Jacob has this podcast that he wants to start, right? And it's an after school function. So he's so happy because 2 people have signed up for it. I was like, Jacob, that's okay. We're gonna give it to Jacob. So we also find out that Gregory is helping him, you know, a part of this with him, right? And Janine was like, Gregory, you're doing a podcast with him? He looked at the camera, and he was talking to the cameraman and saying, you know, basically the only reason why he's doing this is because, you know, if you do an after school project, it pays you a little bit of more extra money. And in his relationships, you know, that's an issue, right? So then we see Janine and Melissa, right? So Janine and Melissa are uber competitive about this readathon because Janine had this whole trolley full of books, and Melissa was like, what are you doing? So Janine has found a way to squeeze in extra time for her students to read the books. So Melissa went back to her students and was like, she has her top 3 students that are really good with reading, right? So she wants them to read in the bath, whenever you can read. If you're reading in the shower, read while you're sleeping, read while you're eating, read while you're taking your, washing your clothes, ironing your clothes, whatever you're doing, read. Read, 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 right? So then we see Jacob and Gregory, and we see the 2 students, so they're doing the podcast, right? So Ava, she came in, she's like, I just want to come here so I can laugh at y'all, right? So we found out that Ava has a podcast of her own where she does Housewives Recap, Banana Mouth, and she has something with screenwriting and ASMR. I was like, are we shocked about Ava? Ava is a jack of all trades, but when it comes to this job right here, being a principal, she does everything but her job. But we love Ava nonetheless. Now let's pause here and move forward, you guys. So next up, you guys, we see Melissa and Barbara. So they're talking about the readathon, right? And, Melissa mentioned the Magic School Bus, and Barbara was like, she has never liked Miss Frizzle. I was like, you don't like Miss Frizzle? Love Miss Frizzle, right? So we find out that Melissa's top 3 students, right, the ones that she told all her students to read, but her top 3, baby, they got the pink eye. So they are out of commission, right? So Janine comes up, and baby, Janine was talking crap to Melissa, and she jumped at her, but then she took off running. Hilarious. I'm like, Janine, a mess. So we then see Janine and Melissa later in the episode, so they want to make a side bet, right? So Melissa's like, okay, well, the loser has to go streak at the Sixers game. And Janine was looking like, okay, but then she also says, the loser has to be a guest on Jacob's podcast. Good luck with that one. That's a punishment to be on Jacob's podcast. Speaking of Jacob's podcast, you guys, what the hell is Jacob doing with this podcast? I didn't blame those little boys because those boys were bored with the podcast, right? So Ava came in, she's listening to the podcast, and Ava's like, pretend like she's going to sleep, right? So one little boy is talking about the girls that he likes, right? I forgot what the other son, and the other one, you guys remember him, he's the one that always calls Jacob Mr. C. So they kind of got into it, right? So then the one that wants to talk about the girls, he wants to talk about this one particular girl that he's trying to talk to, and Ava's in the background like, yeah, let him do that because I've been wanting to get the tea on her. I'm like, Ava, these are kids that you trying to get the tea on some kids, Ava. Come on, Ava. So let's pause here and move forward. So you guys, let's see where we are now. So, Melissa is in the lead with her students, right? So Janine is kind of questioning, like, how are you in the lead? And Barbara's like, she's a great motivator. She motivated me to watch the King's Speech, and that Colin Powell he sure can act. I was like, Colin Powell? Like, y'all know how Barbara is, that episode when she takes the black people and she confuses them with white people that are actors or actresses or singers or whatever, like Michelle Williams. We thought she was talking about Michelle from Destiny's Child, but she was talking about the white Michelle Williams. Colin Powell, she means Colin Firth. I was like, oh wow, Barbara. But okay. So Melissa was looking at her sheet, right? And one of her students, her parents signed off on it, and it said that the little girl had read 25 books. But you guys have to remember, Melissa teaches 2nd and 3rd grade. In the 2nd and 3rd grade, not even in 3rd grade could I say I could read 25 books. I don't even know if an adult can read 25 books in a day. Possibly, you would have to read you would like literally have to read the whole entire day, but I don't know that that's possible. But the parents are saying that she read 25 books. But Melissa had this book, and the little girl couldn't even read the title of the book. And I really felt bad in that particular moment because I was like, that is so sad that she couldn't read the title of the book. So then we moved back over to Jacob with his podcast. His students are pissed off with him because Jacob completely censored what they were talking about in the podcast. So they up and quit. I was like, I don't blame them. Like, that is kind of janky, right? Jacob, you had these boys come and sign up for the podcast, and then you completely take away their voice. So they are rightfully so mad at you. But you guys, we're gonna pause here and move forward. I think we're gonna wrap up the episode. So next up, we see Melissa. So Melissa is talking to, I think the little girl's name is Maya. So she's talking to her parents about the fact that, they signed off on their paper saying that she read 25 books. But Melissa's like, there's no way she read 25 books because none of these kids, they're in a second and third grade. They can't read the books. And her mother was like, I think she was reading, so she asked her about reading Curious George, and she said, who's your favorite character in Curious George? She said, George. And she said, see, I was like, ma'am, did you not see that your daughter paused because she has not read that book? And I know that's not something that a parent typically wants, because what Melissa's just telling her is she's having a difficulty reading. And I know you don't want to hear that because that I know that might sound like to certain parents that, my child has a learning disability, and it might not be that she has a learning disability. It could just be she might be dyslexic. There are a multitude of things that could just mean. Or it just means that she is not, it doesn't necessarily mean she has a learning disability. It just might mean she just has, comprehension. There's a lot of things that could roll into that. It does not mean a learning disability. It just means you might have to go slower with her. You might have to sound things out with her. There's nothing wrong with that. But the parents got upset, and it was more specifically the mother, and they eventually left, right? So we see Ava. So Ava was talking to Jacob about his podcast, and he told her that the kids quit, right? And she was like, I don't blame them because that podcast is boring. It damn near put me to sleep, and I was driving here. You almost took me out. I was like, that was only Ava, right? But she basically tells Jacob, like, so you brought these kids in to do this podcast, but ultimately what happened is you had them do what you wanted them to do and not what they wanted to do. And Jacob finally put two and two together, right? So we saw Melissa. So Melissa was helping little Maya out with the reading, because Melissa said that she had a difficulty when she was growing up with the reading, right? And she was reading that paper about the Read-A-Thon. Come to find out, Melissa won the Read-A-Thon because Janine thought she won the Read-A-Thon, but Melissa ended up reading it because you guys remember, second and third graders is what Melissa has, right? So at the end of the episode, you remember, the loser had to join Jacob for the podcast, right? So Janine is with Jacob and his students. They finally came back. So they've changed the podcast, right? So the kids were like, one of the little boys was like, it's the one that calls Jacob Mr. C, right? He said, my mama said that she saw you and Mr. Eddie, producer Mr. Eddie, in the club, and you was twerking on him. She was like, no, we weren't twerking. No, we were dancing. We were dancing like normal people were dancing. I was like, oh my God, Janine and Gregory. But it was, and they were like, so what kind of podcast is this? And Gregory was like, you're not gonna stop this? He was like, no, because I too would like to know the answer to that question. It was hilarious, you guys. I thought this was a really solid episode. But let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, you guys. Turn on your post notifications and share the video. And until the next time, you guys, please stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Be blessed. And I'll see you guys in the next one.